I'm very happy to have with me Sanjeev Sethi, the Managing Director of Gillard Electronics, a company which is promoted by a family which migrated after 84 riots from Kota to Chandigarh. They are now OEM suppliers. 78% of their turnover is to the OEMs, second tier, and they also export. Let's talk to them, their journey of entrepreneurship and quality. Wonderful meeting you.
Thank you. The company was started up in 1961 by my father. And incidentally, that is the same year which I was born. The company, was, I don't know how my father had this dream of, going into electronics, which was not known in the country at that time. That was the same year, or a year before that, when Bharat Electronics was the one the company started in India. And we started dealing with Bharat Electronics and developed some components for them. In terms of electronics, we used to call it as a first generation electronics. We used to have those wall sockets and the valves. Then we graduated over the years from valves to transistors, ICs, sockets for those, and moved on to the second level, second generation, third generation, and now we are way beyond those generations in electronics. When we shifted to Chandigarh, to Mohali, be more precise, that was in 1985, we had a good unit running in Kota, and we had all mostly OE supplies. Our USP was that we had a good tool room, we had a good technology or the understanding of grasping technology. We were dealing with companies like Instrumentation Limited, who had multi, collaborations with companies all over the world. They had Italian partners, they had Russian partners, they had UK partners, and we got to learn basic design capabilities in that duration. We shifted to Mohali in 85, and that was just after the sad riots of 84. In 87, we got on to the automotive segment. When we came in,
earlier you were not in automotive segment?
No, till 87 we were not in automotive at all. We were purely in electronics. We were making, components for the consumer and entertainment electronics. We were making parts for radios to start with, then the TVs, and then we were making some parts for potentiometers and similar things.
Instruments.
But 87 onwards, we started manufacturing switches for Swaraj Mazda. We helped them, we developed almost about 15, 16 items for them, which are all import substitution items for them.
So this was re-engineering?
This is all re-engineering, and we did it.
Your start of your journey, there was no international collaboration on technology, there was no formal technology transfer?
No.
Okay, wonderful.
And it's, it's so surprising that how in that era, in the early 60s, how my father could manage to, collect so many different technologies and get them under one roof. So all the mold manufacturing was initiated by him. Then on other things like, the press work.
What is his qualification?
He's done radio engineering from Bombay. That was
wonderful.
Way back when he was, I think, about 24, 25 years old. He had early schooling in Pakistan.
So it is more of an entrepreneurial initiative than a technical background, and that is
pure enterprise in which he had no technical knowledge, he had no knowledge of finances, he had no knowledge of anything in fact. But then he could.
You're talking about 61?
Yes, 61.
But when you shifted here, by then he had become a businessman?
Yes, he had established himself very well, and almost the entire electronic industry. Like at that time, the TV manufacturers like Televista, Western, Konak, and name any of them, and they were all our customers. So he had already been able to establish very good quality and credentials with all these.
Business acumen also?
Yes.
So now you started in automobiles. So you started with Swaraj Mazda.
We started with Swaraj Mazda, and then gradually we started dealing with companies like Subaru, with Denso. These were companies, Denso companies. Denso is again Toyota Group companies, and we started making components for them, which they were supplying to Maruti. We are tier 1 also in many cases, like in Swaraj Mazda, we are tier 1.
Is there a recognition by the OE directly of the tier 2 also?
Yes, it is a very strong linkage, because all the tier 2s are known to the OE, they are approved by him, they are audited by him.
Was there any cross learning from Swaraj Mazda or all these OEs?
So the culture, we've seen how the Japanese culture works, we've seen how the American culture works, we've seen how the British culture works. So we have been in touch with those things, and they've all been learning for us.
When did you start your quality initiative, formal quality initiative on?
Many years ago, I was looking through some old records, and I came across a document which was issued by Bharat Electronics Limited, and the document was dated about 1965. And that document was a warranty clause. Those days it was to be guarantee clause, a guarantee clause which was given by Bharat Electronics to its consumers. And that guarantee said that this guarantee is applicable only if you are using large sockets with the tubes.
Okay, wonderful.
If you're not using large sockets, then this guarantee is null and void. So that was the kind of level
Yeah,
of quality
great.
we had established even in the first 4 years of our establishment.
And quality certification?
Quality certification at that time, the only certification in India were from the defense, that the Major General who was heading this CIL division and who was issuing certificates to us, he came from Bangalore to visit a company to say that I want to see the person, I want to meet Mr. H.S. Sethi, who has been able to get so many certificates from CIL. So that was a record kind of a achievement for us at that time.
So, again, going back to my question of when did you start ISO initiative here?
Trend of ISO 9001, it came somewhere around 90 to 93. I think I would not be wrong if I would say that we were among the first few people in Punjab to go in for this ISO 9001.
Where are you in terms of your whole journey of quality improvements?
I'll tell you. You know, we have been graduating along with the requirements. ISO 9000 was taken in 96. Then a new system came up which was known as QS 9000, which was an automotive standard which was developed by the big three. The big three being Chrysler, Ford and General Motors. We adopted that. Later on this QS 9000 was shifted over to TS 16949. So we graduated to that. And in between we also went in for ISO 14001, which is standard for environment systems. And we also went for OSAS 18000, which is meant for health and safety.
All these were your own initiative, not imposed by any of these
No.
OEs? Okay.
No. But they were all initiated because, like I said, our thought process was always to working into a system in which we can get our working into a systematic way of working. That was our approach since the beginning.
Does it give you any kind of reward in your price negotiation with the corporates, or it has actually it was helping you to improve your productivity alone, or it had some impact on your pricing also?
It has an impact. You know, the main thing is the biggest achievement is that we are able to develop people in a way that without the systems one cannot do it. So the biggest strength is developing your people.
So people and products and processes, but no price differentiation between when you were not certified and when you were certified.
No, definitely. There is an edge because these days, at least in the current scenario, these standards per se are all default requirement, basic requirements. Now TS also has been changed to IATF 16949.
And you have some exports also. Which all
We-
countries you are exporting?
We have exports. We have regular exports to Philippines, but we have off and on exports to Europe and to USA.
And they are again OE.
Yes, they are to OE supplies. Like in the Philippines, we are supplying to one of the leaders of electrical products, that is Schneider Electric.
What has been your turnover growth year to year wise?
I think if you take it, the annualized growth has been about 13%.
And what's your turnover now?
Right now, it's about 30 crores.
30 crores.
But from here, we're expecting to take a little sharper curve in increases.
You never went for any kind of a international collaboration for expansion.
Right now, we feel that a partnership joint venture has to be between two partners meant to fill the weakness of one. But now, when we intend to go into some new technologies, then we might be looking for some new venture, some new partner there.
Your initiation into Industry 4.0, what is that and what have you done on that?
The industries, you know, over the years have gone through different generations. So what we call is the first generation electronic industry was when people were used to work with either their hands, manual force, or with the animal force. You know, if there's a water being drawn from the well and you're using a buffalo or some animal to do it, so that was industry 1. You were using atta chakkis to be used by the hand or with some animal power, that was industry level 1. Industry level 2 came in with the invent of electricity and electric motor. That drastically changed things. The productivity rose up suddenly because of the use of electricity and power. Then industry 3 came into it when they started using some kind of PLC, some kind of controls, some kind of instrumentation to take control of these applications. And now Industry 4 is the next level where everything is going digital, where all controls it's something like that you are able to create a virtual factory on your screen. It's like that you got a factory in cyber zone, and everything from incoming to outgoing logistics, everything is controlled by and visibly seen. Data movement is all on the screen.
So where are you on that?
We started working on ERP in way back in 1987. That's when we started computerization, and we were developing the software which didn't have a name at that time. Later on, it came to know as MRP, and then later it evolved to ERP. But we were already ahead of that. All the software development was done in-house, and it was all done in DOS environment, using all very basic obsolete systems which are as well
Way
today.
back 386, 486.
Yes, 286.
Yeah.
And at that time when the hard disk used to be only a size of 20 MB
Yes.
and bigger than the size of a Bible.
Yeah.
And but then over the years we have changed over. We have shifted the software also from DOS to Windows.
Which means
and
you are
Linux.
doing this software development in-house.
Yes, in-house.
So do you have a separate company for doing it, or it's all again Gillard, under Gillard Electronics?
Till about 3 years back, we were doing it all in the Gillard only. But now, the last 3 years, we have opened a subsidiary or a sister venture, which is known as Gap Application Programmers. And there we are. We have converted this old software to new software and added a tremendous amount of features. And because it is so huge and so wholesome that we don't even think of calling it as a ERP, we call it as OSM. It is
Oh, wonderful.
OSM. It is Operating System for Manufacturing.
Oh, great. And this takes care of the Industry 4.0 also.
Industry 4.0, this provides a full platform for Industry 4.0.
For integration.
Yes, it provides a platform for 4.0. When we have this total base of this software, where everything in the company, everything means everything, starting from all activities from HR, from administration, from purchase to sales to manufacturing to inspection to quality, and everything is covered into that.
For a new entrepreneur,
Yeah.
how your software, are you ready for commercialization of this? This software?
Yes, the very purpose of making this new company was that we create a software which is our customers and various visitors who used to come to our company, they would all be very struck by this beauty of the software, the simplicity of the software, and the wide coverage that it was providing. And they would often say that can you give us the software for our company? And we said that no, we can't do it because only developed for our internal activities. But then we thought that why not give it to the industry, because something which is extremely useful for the industry.
Does it require any kind of a special training?
That is one beauty of the software, that it doesn't need any specialized or trained engineers to handle the software. In our company, we have more than 100 sheets of this same software running, and the people who are operating, working on them are barely 10th pass or 12th pass, and they start working on it with just about 1 hour of training.
So no formal training is required.
No formal training required. The systems are so beautifully designed and they're so user friendly and menu run that they get the hang of it.
And
very
this
soon.
can be used even for a startup.
Yes, it can be.
And from startup to big companies, everybody can use it.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
After this Smart Factory 4.0, where we have linked up the entire unit with the IoTs and sensors and getting all the data on the screens, now we are working towards artificial intelligence, in which we are using all this data to take decisions for us. Things like design changes, things like quality analysis, things like root cause analysis is being done by using artificial
And
intelligence.
that will be valid for any industry.
Yes, it will be.
Fantastic. Gillard is a family managed company. The transition from your father to you and probably next generation, how seamless it is and how much you were ready to take on and how much your next generation is ready to take on.
My father, he's almost 90 years now, and still he's active, and he comes to the office every day for at least 3 hours. And we have been working right through under his guidance. We are 3 brothers, and we have taken independent, responsibilities for different areas. Since last 9-10 years, even the 3rd generation has come in. They did their engineerings and MBAs, and they came in, and we could sense that they are not getting that sense of ownership or the sense of, responsibility which they were to take up. We kept on, looking at various things, looking at various associations, how they're handling family business to be handled, and thinking what we should do. We also got in touch with, Indian School of Business, and had sessions with them, with their professors, and, discussing generally how these things should happen. But ultimately, we had to find our own formula to work it out.
As always, yeah.
What we did was that we said that, okay, let the third generation, we told them that, okay, we understand you have got your visions and aspirations and ambitions, so take over. Just look into it, take charge, and don't worry, we'll take a back seat. So we, the second generation, we took a back seat and said that we are there, we'll be there for another 3-4 years. So you do your learning.
You were paid during that sabbatical which you took?
It wasn't a sabbatical as such, because that was the time which I started putting more effort on this gap for the application programmers.
Okay.
So I spent the time on that and started building systems for the company under the new, with the new languages and the new environment, including the Smart Factory 4.0. So we gave this, task to this the next generation, and there were a team of 3 youngsters who looked into this aspect, and we're happy that in 3 years they could sustain the business. And but after 3 years, they felt that they are finding it a little difficult to scale up the business to the next level. So then they again got back to the thought process and said, no, we require that you come again to the business. So put in another few years, guide us a little more, and then we can see where it moves on to that. So on that basis, the transition is because there was no such thing as anybody trying to hold on to the power. But
You were the most robust company, especially those who came from after 84 riots. And we always give your example. As anyone who wants to learn, the only way is to go to Gilad and learn from there. Wish you all the best.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
thank you very much.
God bless.
Thank you.
Happy to meet you, Khurshid.
Same here.
I really want to know your journey under your father's regime. What is the real vision of Gilad from what you understood when it started, what it is now, and where we are heading?
Jakshit, you take me back many years, 78, 79. That's the time when I had just passed out of college and joined as an engineer, fresh engineer in my company in 79.
Engineering in what?
I did my engineering in electrical from MREC Jaipur. So when I joined the company, we already had about 200 plus workers in the company, and probably the highest technical person was a foreman who was diploma holder, and he was basically a die fitter. And other than that, all other people were all skilled technicians. After joining, I was given a cabin as an office where I used to sit, and for the first few months, maybe almost a year, I had nothing to do. Literally, I mean, like everything was in auto mode. People knew their work, and they would treat me as a kid. And I was just out of college, and the workers, they were much elder to me, and they would just treat me as a kid. Acha ji, wo dekh lo, kya karna hai, kya karna hai. So I found that it was a really hard task for me to get my position into that, atmosphere. Fortunately, my dad, in fact, he was, I don't know, he came into this industry by some sort of a default. I mean, he was actually a businessman who was running a business, I mean, like a general stores. He had 2 general stores. And he had, of course, done his diploma in radio engineering from Bombay. He happened to meet a gentleman who was basically a die fitter, die person, who was from the background of die making. And he had started the industry, he wanted a partner. And dad wanted to invest money in that, and they became partners. Unfortunately, that partnership did not work out for more than a year or so, and dad offered to get out, hoping that he would give him the money. But unfortunately, that other gentleman wanted to take the money, and he had nothing. He was landed with that project or the industry. He had to shell out the money. So, I mean, like when the thing landed in his lap, he had to work on it. So then he started working on that. And in those days, there were very few industry in the place we started, Kota. And the project was started with sockets for the picture tubes. The
What
wall
was the
sockets.
investment initially?
That was a few thousand rupees probably. I mean, I remember that he had picked up, later on he had told us, because we were not there that time, and he had picked up, some second-hand machines for maybe 1,000 rupees, 2,000 rupees. Totally the initial investment must be around about maybe 20,000 or something like that. in those in 1961.
You are talking of $500.
Yeah. So then he started looking around and finding what to do. He found that die makers were only available in Ambala, and he used to come to Ambala, get the molds made, run back, do the casting there, the trials, and then shuttling between Ambala and Kota. Then ultimately he got the products developed, and then he found the customers in Bangalore. So it was quite a tough job. But probably he had a vision that he understood at that time that having these different areas of manufacturing, like tool making or molding, plastic molding or sheet metal working, if he integrates them under one workshop, one roof, it is going to be better. So probably from that time only he started, investing in that to make a setup, a manufacturing unit which has all these areas under one roof.
Okay,
And
great.
till today, we specialized in that today also we have almost all the working areas of the engineering industry under one roof. We started making tools in-house, the press tools, the stamping tools, the molds, the fixtures, jig fixtures, everything in-house. And we were also doing plastic molding inside, which we graduated from doing phenolic molding to thermoplastics, engineering plastics. We were into stamping.
These were being done on indigenous machines, or you imported some machines?
We were doing all into indigenous machines only. But I remember the vision of my dad. It was way back in somewhere in the early, even before I had joined. At that time, he had imported a Mitutoyo tool maker's microscope, which was unheard of, which had accuracy of 1 micron. And in those days, he had that vision of taking high, expensive equipment for inspection. That is the way he thought at that time, and he had purchased, and precisely that machine is still there with us. A 1 micron release count tool maker's microscope. So that's the time we started that. And gradually when I joined, how I made a place for myself, I was telling you that those people in that company, they thought a kid is on the run and then let him pass his time. But my dad had another good hobby. He used to buy good books. He had a library of his own. And as an engineer, I was into reading technical books. So he had bought some books on plastics, plastic molding technology, and books on stamping technology, progressive tools. So I got into the habit of reading. And through the reading, I realized that the subject, what is being done, there's a difference. Those people are doing it from their habit of doing it, and technically there is something different. So what I did was, I got that theory which I studied, implemented in one of the tools. And the results were dramatic. The production which was of a tool was 250 per shift, went up to 750. And that is the time, after putting that implementation, that is how those people then started respecting, this guy must be doing something. He's an engineer, he does know something. So that is how after a couple of years only, I could make some, inroads into the minds of people there, the workers there.
So how many workers you are talking about at that
That
moment?
was about 200 plus workers at that time also.
At that
we had.
moment,
Yeah,
okay.
At that moment, that is somewhere in 1979, 80. And then we had this task of, we were working with the Instrumentation Limited Kota, and we became the number one, installer to them. They were having a lot of collaborations with our different companies, and we became the number one vendors for them. And almost anything that came our way, we would do it for them. It had variety of components, plastic components, assemblies, sheet metal components, and we never said no to them.
How
And
many items?
we must have made hundreds of items for them, hundreds of items. Starting from a very small.
It was all
It
re-engineering?
was all re-engineering. It was not, it was basically re-engineering. It was like import substitution.
Yeah, you were doing that.
It was import substitution basically, because they had to.
So you specialize in that domain.
We specialize in the domain of indigenization.
What were the main players who were your clients?
As I told you, we were started with the sockets, the sockets for the picture tube, the wall sockets. Then we ventured into CRT sockets, the sockets for the cathode ray tube, which is the tube which was being used in that TVs. And we, from Instrumentation Limited, we were also supplying to all the key television players, television companies, then Bharat Electronics, ECIL, Indian Telephone Industries, and the defense. We did a lot of products for the defense. There was a unit in instrumentation also who were doing telephone exchange for the defense, the portable telephone exchange. It was a 15-line telephone exchange, for which we did a lot of components, including the telephone junction box, their jacks, and there were many items we developed for them.
So you used to get some equipment to copy, or you used to get some drawings to really work around?
We used to get drawings also, and at times there were no
Component.
drawings, only the samples. They would give us the imported samples, and we had to do complete re-engineering and the designing of the product itself, redesign, and the designing of the manufacturing system.
So when you say redesign means sometimes you improved upon that
Yes,
product
yes,
also.
we did. We used to do a number of times, we used to, improve on the product also.
Good, wonderful. So continue with your journey, please.
So that's how, I could make inroad into the plant,
Into
that the
your-
people started giving me a little bit of
And
respect.
then when you started your journey of bringing quality and development of new technologies, from there on, what was your learning or your own learning curve?
Let me tell you, get me back, because 79 to 84, there's not much, that's about 5 years. In 85, we had to shift, we had to shut down the unit in Kota and shift to Mohali here. And the real challenge came up only after coming to Mohali. Because a running unit with a high turnover at that moment, and we had to suddenly come here, and we were out of work for 1 month almost, and we packed up and we shifted all the plant machinery here over a period of maybe 4 or 5 months gradually. But the initial thing was that once we packed up from Kota, we had to restart the unit here. So my father, when he came here in December of 84, he had purchased a small shed where we immediately shifted some of the, and we shifted a couple of projects which could sustain us in case some things went wrong. So we had an assembly line of switches, which we got all the tooling from there. And we had to restart and reestablish with total new manpower. So that was the biggest challenge for us. And for the first time, when we started in 85, we hired women in Punjab. Earlier in Kota, we had never hired women in our company. But in 85, when we restarted this unit with a small
So it was a
strength,
cultural shift.
it was a cultural shift. And from day one, when we started hiring, first day we hired about 20 ladies and about maybe 2 or 3 men. The next day again we had, so in the first month probably we had about 50 people here. And we gradually restarted this company here. And that was the time when we brothers had to put in the maximum effort. Because at that time the elders had taken a little backseat and they were not involved in the manufacturing part of the company.
So that was your initial challenges in
Initial
your
challenges
life.
of restarting the full setup after packing up in Kota and resetting up in Mohali here. So those challenges, the second challenge came when from the small unit which we had, it was in a small shed of 1,000 yards. We had to build up the new factory which you see today. It took us 1 year, and later next year, that is 86 October, we shifted to this new plant. It was a 10,000 square feet plant, and then we gradually built up this place, and now we have, you see the place, this is double-story building with a much more area. So that is the challenge how we came through. Other challenge technically we were facing was the technology part. Earlier, like in stamping, we talk about stamping, a particular component has multiple operations. The old school of thought was you stamp the product, blanket, do processes, multiple processes, maybe about 5 steps, 6 steps, 7 steps, and then end of the day you are getting a finished product. But the idea was, as I had seen in the companies when I visited abroad, especially I had gone to Japan, so I saw the companies there, they were doing progressive tooling.
So with whom you had gone to Japan?
I
What
had
was
a chance of taking a training course there in Japan with AOTS. It was a course which was basically a low-cost automation program. So I was there for 15 days. We did a lot of programs, studied there, but this one thing which struck me was, and I had a vision, that I want to run a press, a stamping press, without an operator. So earlier, I give you an example, we had a product which was known as a terminal. It would take 6 operations, and the output was roughly about 3,500 pieces per person per day. Ultimately, going through the stages, we made a progressive tool, and it got me a production of 30,000 pieces per person per day.
So this tool was made in-house.
It was made in-house, and then we got into the process of making all such similar tools where we went to progressive tooling, and that is how the technology in-house developed. That was in the stamping part. Similarly, for the molding, earlier we used to make small hand molds. Their production was very low, like 250 pieces. Then we went into bigger machines, better machines, and multi-cavity molds, and injection molding of thermoplastics.
And these were imported machines.
Most of the machines were localized. They were not imported. No, we did not have any imported machines. Over the period of time, we expanded our technology in terms of machinery. We had a better tool room. We had a better molding machines. We had a better stamping presses. Later on, we got 2 presses from Taiwan, which are high-speed presses. We got machinery from Taiwan again for molding also. Today we have quite a number of machines which are imported. So that is how we scaled up.
What was the force of taking up all these expensive investments?
You can say it was a passion also, that I wanted to do something better. It is also a need, because by doing this, there are two factors which come into play. The cost of production goes down drastically. Second, the consistency in the product increases drastically. The more the number of operations I have, the more the chances of failure. The one operation, single operation, one tool, the chances of success are much higher. So that is the one concept which we had in mind. The more the number of processes, the failures chances will go up.
Did the number of employees come down because of automation, or what is the number of people working with you now?
We came in 85. That time the only objective was survival, to set up. The implementation and innovations all started after 90s. Early
During that
yes.
phase of automation, what is the total number of people now working for you?
Today we have almost about 450 people.
So which means your automation has not led to retrenchment.
It has not led us to retrenchment in any way, because the people were put to more useful work.
Okay.
And the improvement in the productivity has made us take more products. Earlier, 6 people were used to make one product, and we could only supply one product. Today, we can supply 6 products by using 6 people. So the basket of the product increased.
General impression across is that automation leads to unemployment. I mean, everywhere when you talk, in your case, the automation has led to expansion of business
Yes.
and more employment generation opportunities.
It has brought in more business, definitely. But I don't think that it has reduced number of people. People are there to run the systems. The people are there to run the machines. They are there.
Every company goes through a cycle. Did you see a lean period, or it was never a lean period for you?
No, I'm sure, I think we have seen lean period also. But we have seen also a period where we had a big jump also. Like I remember we had a jump of more than 50 or 60% in one year. And then there were other years when couple of years probably we had a negative minus 10% also.
Which year?
So often maybe, probably about 5-6 years back, when there was a depression in the country or something like that.
Now, you are at a stage where you have built an industry, a unit, which is ready to take next leap, I believe so. It's an era of collaboration. What are your thoughts, where and how will be your comfort to look at such opportunity where you can really encash your hard work which you have done all these years, and you have complete robust systems in place which any international player, whether they are coming from Korea, Taiwan, Japan, as they are looking at collaborators to come and set up their shops here, with the pressure of central government to do manufacturing in India of most of the electronic components. So there is a huge opportunity sitting. As a family, do you think you will be open to have collaboration if it takes you to the next level?
Of course, yes. Let me also tell you a little background. As I was telling you about the quality systems we went through, I told you about my training in AOTS Japan in Yokohama. I will also tell you that I was passionate about quality and quality systems. I am the fortunate one to have attended a course in training by Dr. Taguchi. Now, Taguchi systems are very well known in circles of management, and technologically it is one of the steps which is taken to improve zero defect. I'm also a black belt, Six Sigma black belt.
Oh,
And we have been implementing here in our company, in trying to implement Six Sigma black belt here, and training my people, how to become zero defect is through this process of Six Sigma. My training in AOTS was basically in low-cost automation, and after coming back, we started with 5S implementation. That was somewhere in late 90s or early 2000. And after that, we started doing low-cost automation here, setting up lines, line balancing, and single flow piece of items. So till today, we are still doing that practice, which was there 20 years back. And our people are trained to know that. Today, even if I'm not there, the same system set up by me 20 years back are still in place. And when we talk about the people who want to come here, yes, we are welcome. We would love to be with them because we already have the strength and the foundation which is made.
Your family's willingness to venture into some other domain like mobile component manufacturing, or you want to really remain focused on your core of the profile of products which you're making now?
We are not a product-based industry. We are specializing in making components as per the requirement of the customer. It may be a plastic molded component, it may be a stamped component, it may be a complete assembly like a relay or a switch, anything. So we are in a position to design, develop and design even the manufacturing process for the customer.
Khushi, for an example, the mobile segment, government has put a lot of emphasis that no more government is happy only with the assembly of mobiles here. They want the components also should be manufactured. And I'm just giving you a glimpse of the size of the market. My data is 2 years back. 15 million mobiles are being assembled in NCR region only. That's a 90% of the total mobiles being assembled in India. So we are sitting so close. If Punjab does not position itself to take advantage of the opportunity, 15 million, if each component has if each mobile has around 2,000 rupees of the cost component, just imagine we are talking about 3,000 crore rupees of purchase every month. That's the volume, and there's a pie. So I believe that Koreans and Taiwanese manufacturers of those components are looking for collaboration. I've just given you an example. There will be many others in many other domains. If they come and start talking to you, what will be your initial response? Do you really want to get into any other domain, or you just want to remain focused on what you're doing?
We are actually open to it. In fact, in the past, I think 10 years, we even tried to tie up with 2 companies at 2 different occasions. One was about, I think, 7-8 years back, we were talking to a company in Germany for making resistors. And that company had shortlisted us in the top 3 companies. And ultimately, we did not come across, and they tied up with some company down south. The second time was about, I think, 4 years back with a Korean company. We talked to them for about a couple of years, and in fact, I visited their plant in Korea. They also came here and visited our plant. We had a number of meetings, and ultimately, they also shortlisted us, and then we turned out to be number 2nd. And but still, we are open to it, and we are always open to, any sort of tie-up, any foreign company coming in. We are willing for that.
What will drive your negotiation? Will it be value-based between the 2 companies' vision, or it will be pure commercial opportunity?
I think we have to think of a win-win situation. We cannot be thinking only pure in terms of economics, not money, but basically win-win. Like we would definitely want them to share some technology. We would be using the manpower, local manpower, training the manpower, and our area would be basically setting up the plant, using our local manpower, provide employment to the people here, and of course, the technical support has to come from there.
And use their brand also.
Yes.
Wonderful. So the vision next generation, for your next generation, if you have to give them a message, your own generation, what will that be?
What I would say is that how we can help the people of the state and the country. That's more important. How we can contribute in giving back to the society and work to improve the quality of life of the people around us.
Through your quality movement.
Through whatever movement we do, whether it is selling or buying or manufacturing, any movement, ultimately we have to how we can help the people improve the quality of their life.
Wonderful vision. So, and if you have to tell the youth of Punjab, because we are sitting in Punjab, talking about Punjab. In your entrepreneurial journey, the challenges and the solutions which you found, what is that one take for them to learn?
See, what I have seen in Punjab is that every Punjabi is by nature an entrepreneur. He has ways of doing things which people don't think of. We call it jugaad. he is got jugards up his sleeve, and I've seen that in the farmers' place everywhere. If a switch has gone wrong, he knows how to manipulate and start the engine. He knows how to set the thing right if it's leaking. I mean, they would do some sort of arrangement. So the mind works. Mind is fertile. They have initiative. They have innovation in them. They only need a proper channel which can guide them into making things better. That's all.
And what they should do to get there?
I think the support which we can give them is proper organized skill development and a platform in which they can show their innovation.
They can get exposed to
They get
innovation.
exposed.
Wonderful, Kashif. Wonderful talking to you. It was wonderful speaking to Sanjeev also, and I wish that your journey of being a mentor now to your next generation and taking them through next level, looking at international collaboration, everything fructifies in 2019 before elections.
Thank you,
God
Rajiv.
bless you.
Thank you so much.
Manjeev, it's such a pleasure interacting with you. You're now third generation into the business.
Right.
You are inheriting a legacy of technology domain. How enthusiastic you are to take it forward, and what's your vision for for this whole enterprise?
This enterprise is now 57 years old, and I joined 7 years back. And one of the most good qualities of the industry that as soon as I joined was we would the second generation or the first generation that have taught the third generation is any organization which is person dependent is a weak organization. And the Gilad strength lies that it is a very system dependent organization. And this is what my vision for the company is, that irrespective of whether the founding family is part of Gilad or is not part of Gilad, but Gilad has to go on, maybe for another 50 years. But that contribution of the founding family to the state of Punjab, to the country, is Gilad that goes on forward. That's the legacy.
Oh, wonderful. And your vision for from where you are going to get that leap forward?
That Gilad, the state of Punjab, and Gilad being a company in it, we're open to foreign investments and companies coming in for foreign collaboration. And I would just want to point out that Gilad as an industry in Punjab, or Punjab industry by and large, is ready to accommodate and go in for world-class manufacturing with the help of...
So your company is ready for adoption of new technologies, new products, new processes.
Definitely.
Wonderful. Great meeting you.
Thank
God
you for
bless
having me.
you.
Thank you.
All my blessings.